Hello and welcome back to the Peave and Cronnie show. I'm Peave.
And I'm Cronnie.
And today we're going to be talking about a couple of things. We're going to talk about what we've been playing recently. We're going to talk about the difference between open world levels and linear levels and kind of which one's better. We're going to have a bit of a talk about the kind of state of gaming now in 2020 with the current console generation. And then probably, I imagine that will lead to the greatest console generation of all time. So anyway, that's what I'm hoping to cover. And then bed. It's not bedtime. This isn't come out till 12:30 tomorrow afternoon. It's live. No,
yeah, but it's currently 23:30 on the hottest day of the year in the UK.
You'll get over it. Right. Anyway, so what have you been playing recently?
Recently, I have been playing a test flight for Halo Infinite.
The co-op test flight.
Co-op test flight, yeah.
They found Forge files sat in the background of that, so that all the leaks for Forge are coming out now.
Yes, and many other things as well, I've noticed.
So anyway, I've also been playing that, obviously, because we've been playing together.
Correct.
What's your thoughts so far?
I don't really think it adds anything different per se. We played it, didn't we? How long did we play it for? About an hour and a half, didn't we?
Something like
Just
that.
messing about. It would have been less time. It would have been less than an hour and a half if one of the missions didn't break, i.e. the first mission broke halfway through and none of the bad guys spawned up, so we had to restart the whole mission. So it would have been less than an hour and a half. So, because the idea was we were going to basically play until we got onto the Halo ring, weren't we? Which we did. So yeah, it doesn't really offer anything new. Certainly not in the linear levels. Apart from the grapple hook is a saving grace, and I think you'd agree we had quite a bit of fun with the grapple hook at times.
Yeah, but that is not. I disagree with it being a saving grace. I don't think that the grapple hook is enough to save that game. Like playing through it, it felt boring. It kept like we were running through like sections, and past Halo games, like I quite often like run past all the bad guys and push the switch. You know, on boring sections in levels, like clear this area out, you just run past them and push the switch, and it's the end of the level or whatever. On Halo Infinite, it's like you must kill all the bad guys before you can continue, and it felt like we were playing little mini firefights.
Yeah.
Survive this round of firefight before you can move forward, and that, unfortunately for me, is a continuation of my dislike for Halo Infinite's campaign in general. I'm not the biggest fan.
Yeah, you've never warmed to it, have you?
Well,
I have warmed to it. The problem I've got now with this co-op campaign is because I did warm to the main campaign, I have literally done everything there is to do on that campaign. I've got all the skulls, I've got all the data pads, I've completed it on every difficulty possible. Easy, normal, heroic, legendary, lasso. There is literally nothing else I can do on that game in terms of the campaign, apart from slingshot off your ass when you're running in front of me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, from a perspective of someone who loves it, I'm never going to be able to play that game ever again because that co-op campaign is not bringing anything new to me.
Which makes me laugh because how many times have you played through Halo 1, 2, 3, or Reach in co-op? Or 4?
I've lost count. I couldn't even count.
Yeah. But the concept of playing through Halo Infinite, you're like, oh yeah, there's nothing really in it for me. Which shows and kind of proves my point of it's maybe not as good as people initially thought. It doesn't have the tech.
The reason there's nothing in it for me, is because it's not something you can just simply play back. If that makes sense. So when we play Halo 3 back or Halo 2, we might just do the Master Chief missions. We might just do the Arbiter missions. We might just start at this point and we'll go from here and we'll do this. We might decide to have one of those crazy nights where we're going to go, let's do a complete Halo playthrough from Halo Reach all the way through. On Infinite, because you've got that open world element there, there's nothing to do in the open world. There's no set path to follow. So when you've completed the game, that's it. You're just in the open world, and when you've collected everything, that's it. You're just meandering around this open world with nothing to do.
It's not
I
even
can't.
that though. Like in general, the story doesn't go anywhere. It's missing set pieces. Like there isn't a set piece. Where's the bit where you get in a tank and storm over the bridge, or fight a scarab and take it down? Like where's that set piece in the game? There's none of those moments. You get a couple of well, I say a couple. You get a ridiculously large amount of bullet sponge bosses. You get a half-assed weapon system where, to make sure that you still feel like you're progressing and unlocking stuff, they just let you unlock a different variation of the same weapon you've already got.
Yeah.
On a very, very limited sandbox, which was clearly limited so that they could add the weapons back later on to make their live service game feel more like a live service game. Like, the entire game just isn't as good as it could be. It's not as good as it should be. Not to beat the dead horse, but co-op doesn't add anything for that. Like 4-player, 2-player, 3-player, it doesn't matter.
Does it?
Sorry, just to get this frustration out of my head. You can't touch each other. Like, yeah, you can grappling hook, but there is no interaction to you other than that. There's no jumping on each other's heads. There's no like any of that mechanic. The stuff that used to make like interesting routes, like where you would like even CE, like you could take shortcuts through the library by jumping on your teammate's head then jumping over instead of grenade jumping. You'd be able to do stuff like that. None of that is there. And it seems really, really stupid to limit us, given that we're now in an open world environment. On the linear levels, that kind of would have made sense to limit us there. But in an open world environment, okay, their excuse was that in multiplayer, they didn't want players like getting in the way of each other because it's frustrating. Okay.
Yeah.
In co-op, the players you're playing with are your friends and your friends only. So who cares? If you get frustrated at your mate that keeps standing in the way of you, you're going to hit him in the face with a sniper rifle. And then you're going to go, you're an idiot. And all of a sudden, you start killing each other, which, let's be honest, is how every Halo co-op session goes. The second you start getting bored. I don't think I've ever played through Halo CE without punching my teammate in the back at least once just for fun.
Correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Like, to me, it's 343's usual. You can have fun, but only the way that we tell you can have
We
fun.
want you to play it, yeah. I mean, even that is far out. I can't understand why bosses were introduced. Well, I can, because they've done this open world element, and it's all like, oh, blah blah blah. Come on, you've got to kill this boss to unlock this area.
But it's not to unlock the area.
Bosses have never worked. Bosses have never worked in Halo. People love bosses in Halo for some reason, and they've never worked. They've always been, and there's absolutely no point to them. But now, on the co-op, the bosses are easy. They're like, what's the point of these bosses? Because now the boss just follows one player, and the other player just runs up behind him and shoots them.
Again, it's that game that just shouldn't be the way that it is.
Yeah.
There's no need for it. The move from linear levels to open world really damaged Halo.
Well, that's a nice little segue onto something else I wanted to talk about. Obviously, we touched on it briefly on midweek when we were talking about games. So when we were talking about Conflict Desert Storm and talking about Splinter Cell, I think games have gone quite boring now with this open world element. They look great. You've got these great big open spaces to explore and all that type of thing, but I don't think there's any replayability with them.
You almost have so much choice that there's no real choice at all. I don't know. Earlier today, I was playing a certain Splinter Cell game for potential future content, and so when I was playing it, like I was playing a very specific level, and so the level I played was it was a level you could play in both co-op and single player, and so playing this level in co-op would open up like the ability to take certain routes where you could boost your teammate up, you could open doors together and stuff. But then playing in single player meant I had to take like a different route. But I never felt like there was only one route I could take. In fact, I actually finished the level taking a separate route that I didn't even mean to discover. Like I stumbled across it and was like, oh wow. And I completed like, so the way that the mission worked was effectively it had like, here's your little hub world. It was like a little fort in the middle of the ocean, and you could go in any way you wanted to go. You started on the docks, get into the fort, complete the 3 objectives in whatever order you wanted to, and then get out. Really, really simple sort of stuff that I'd expect from a stealth game. But having it on like this tiny, and when I say tiny island, I mean this level. I played through it until about 10 minutes. Again, I've not played Splinter Cell in a while, so I was fiddling with the controls and messing about. But that hub closed world, which gave you lots of different options to kind of get through that area, I genuinely finished it and was like, oh, do you know what? I might play through that level again. I want to see what it's like doing it. What if I'd gone the other way? What? Yeah, that doesn't exist in open world games because, for example, Halo Infinite is massively open world. But all you're actually doing in the open world is just driving to the next location to then run into a very, very walled off area that tries to then funnel you into like weird tunnels because it can't get away from its tunnel shooter or corridor shooter like sort of route. Because Halo Infinite happens to be the most open world and yet the most linear Halo game at the exact same time in a very weird sort of like twist.
There's nothing there for you to master. So if you take the Silent Cartographer as an example, you land on the beach. From that point, you can go across the beach to the elites and take them on, or you can go, I'm going to go to the end of the level first and go the other way round. And you can master the level however you want to master it, because it is a set path, but you decide where you want to go. Infinite doesn't have that because you invade these compounds, and although you can invade the compound any way you want, you can jump out of a pelican, out of a wasp or whatever it's called, and you can go through over a fence, you can take a scorpion in, you can do all those things, but ultimately you're still attacking the same thing, and you still have to get out and shoot a power core or this or that, and they're all in the same place. So it completely removes the opportunity for you to play the game differently.
I think also Infinite sabotages its own open world by limiting your choices. For example, you cannot go through a section of Halo Infinite without setting off all the bad guys. Like, they all will eventually just be running at you. You can't sneak. There's the implementation, like with when you're implementing a massive open world, you want to have the ability to like position a sniper up on that ridge and stuff like that. And if I've got a sniper up on that ridge, right, at what range can that sniper shoot where he's not going to get noticed by the people he's shooting at? On Halo Infinite, the answer is no range at all, because the second that you pull the trigger, everybody looks at you as if like you have somehow, like, I don't know, put up a big flare saying, I'm right here. Like, there's no kind of mechanic to it. But taking that backwards and looking even again, Halo CE, since you're using the Silent Cartographer, on the Truth and Reconciliation at the start, you can take out the entire front start area without alerting the enemy. In fact, there's multiple times across at least the original trilogy of Halo where you can do kind of semi-sneaking.
Yeah.
And Halo's never had a suppressor in it. Like, ODSTs had suppressors. Having the ODST pistol with a suppressor on it and giving you the option to do sort of stealthy approaches, maybe for taking out grunts, so all that was left was the brutes or the elites, that would make for a really cool like sort of twist. And it would make could you imagine like, oh well, for the co-op we're gonna replay this like compound that we took over, but we're gonna try and do it silently.
Yeah,
you've now created that replayability that Halo Infinite just doesn't have. There's nothing replayable about Halo Infinite, so co-op adds nothing to the game.
We'll wait for Nightfall to invade that compound because there's less guards, or there's more guards, or
I mean, a great example of that would be Metal Gear Solid 5. That was like an open world stealth game. But if you were constantly headshotting people, eventually the guards would start wearing helmets.
Right.
So that you couldn't headshot. Or if you had like basically it just took on how you like if you were constantly body shotting, they'd start wearing like body armor and stuff.
Yeah.
So it would just adjust based on like your playstyle to sort of counteract what you'd been doing. A Halo Infinite does nothing. It doesn't adjust to your playstyle. It doesn't do anything. It says, here's the bad guys. They're all going to point at you. Put it on Legendary and your vehicles are going to melt so they become entirely useless. Like that mission where you get into the tank and you're like kind of, I say mission, it's like a section of the open world where you kind of go down a bit of a canyon in a tank and it's like, yeah. Do you know how anticlimactic that is when you're creeping through a bush, listening to it go because your tank got blown up from two shots from like a plasma pistol or whatever nonsense it is? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's if there was other vehicles there that I could have taken and continued that adventure, but they took away the power fantasy of being Master Chief. They took away the opportunity to play in that way because I was on a higher difficulty setting. It's fine. I chose to go on a higher difficulty setting. I've gone back. I've done it on normal. And yeah, you can play through that section. And to be honest, it's nothing to write home about anyway. There was nothing badass about it. You never got the whole like tank beats ghost, tank beats hunter, tank beats everything. Like you didn't get that moment where you felt empowered being in your tank. Even on normal, you was just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm driving a tank now.
Yeah.
But the whole of Halo Infinite in its open world feels very pedestrian. In fact, the best part of Halo Infinite's entire open world was the section they showed in 2019 on that demo. You see, when you land there, you've got to take out the three
guns.
The three guns. It's the only part where you can do the objective in your option, like in your choice of objective. And that is the only part of it that they got right. And it's amazing that that's the one that they decided to show us to advertise it.
Yeah. Yeah, they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, so they know what their own shortcomings there. And
you could take out the spires whichever way you want as well, can't you? But it's just they're so far spread across the map, those spire things, that it's like, come on,
go east, go west, go south.
You've just spread this out to extend the campaign as best you can, and it's like. I mean, I want to point out that Halo Infinite is not the only game I think falls short of being a good open world game, and
of course it's not
something that should go back to linear time, should we say? So, I mean, I even think Ghost Recon. If you look at the compounds of Ghost Recon, a lot of those Breakpoint on Wildlands, a lot of the compounds that you invade and stuff like that, they've essentially just copy and paste compounds.
Yeah.
But if you remember the fun we had playing War 2, for example.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree though, because Ghost Recon, especially Ghost Recon Breakpoint, has a really cool feature, right? Where you can turn off all your HUD and everything. You can turn off your waypoints, you can turn it all off. And then when you get your mission objectives, your mission objective will talk about, oh, there's a compound to the north near, and then they'll give you like a random or south of or north of or east of whatever, like a certain area, and they'll tell you roughly like the region you need to get to and then roughly where the compound is, but don't put it on your map. They don't do anything else. That open world aspect there, trying to make your way to a compound where you're not just running towards the like 200 meters, 150 meters, 100 meters, like when you're not just running towards the dot on your screen.
Yeah.
The open world makes sense in that mechanic.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So Ghost Recon does it well if you choose to play it in that way. The problem is
if you choose to play it as a ghost.
The problem is that playing it in that way is time consuming, and we live in a generation of
hand holding.
Yeah, give me it now. So it comes back to my argument about Dark Souls. Dark Souls isn't difficult. It's just that most modern games give you checkpoints every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, from a standpoint between open world and linear, I think that both of them have their place in the game world. Does every game need to go open world? No. But also, there's a difference between going open world and going Ubisoft open world. Like Ubisoft's open worlds are just full of random collectibles for the sake of having collectibles.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's no reason for them to be as vast and as big as they are. Whereas if you compare that to something like GTA's open worlds are really, really like, I'm gonna say quite a tightly crafted space. Like, there's nothing that feels like wasted space in GTA. There's always something to be in that area for.
Yeah.
Red Dead 2 is another perfect example. Basically, everyone knows it, but Rockstar's just masters of open world.
Even though they have shut Red Dead down.
Yeah, well, if they're shutting that down to focus on GTA 6, which is what they've said, then I'm all for that, because GTA has always been one of my kind of big franchises that I've enjoyed. So I'm all for that. Although I would be really, really interested to see what they do with GTA Online, because is GTA 6 going to restart online, or are we going to take all of that stuff over? If we're taking all the stuff over, are we going to get our flying bikes and nonsense like that? Because that seems like a bit of a strange thing, because there's a lot of people who spent a lot of money and a lot of time on
No,
GTA.
I think they'll start again.
I don't mind starting again. I don't mind. But I'd rather that it was an expansion. I'd rather, or not an expansion. Is an expansion the right word? I'd rather that we had at least some things that came over. Maybe, I mean, they'll do the usual thing, like, oh, here's your free car for signing up to Rockstar Social Network and blah blah blah. But yeah, I suppose though the real question is, with stuff like GTA coming from Rockstar, and Rockstar being owned by 2K, and 2K being one of the game publishers that have moved forward to the £70 game model, which has sort of led to an increased need. It's not even just a want anymore. It's a need for systems like Games Pass and PlayStation Now, where you can get access to a vast quantity of games for a very, very low price. Do you really think that GTA will perform as well as it would do normally, not being affiliated with one of those systems? Because I don't know about you, but I've become quite accustomed to not having to pay for games.
Yeah. GTA will always sell well.
You say that, but Call of Duty, the last two haven't sold very well at all, because people have been playing the free-to-play Warzone mode.
Do you remember? Do you remember when GTA 5 first came out and it just absolutely blitzed every number that Call of Duty had put down before it?
Of course it did. It was always going to. It's one of the largest franchises.
That's the thing. You could put GTA inside a turd and say, "This is your game. It's £70. It's the only way you're going to play GTA 6," and people will just pay it. It's fact. It's fact. They'll pay it, and you know full well I'm not the biggest advocate for GTA. I've always preferred the Red Dead side of things, but you can bet your ass I'll go out and buy GTA 6. I went out and bought a GTA 5, and I really enjoyed the game.
Bit of arm twisting involved in you getting GTA 5.
But I really enjoyed them. So they're going to sell. They're going to sell no matter what, and it doesn't matter how they do it or what price tag it. They could put $100 on that game and say, "Oh, we'll give you $1 million shark card if you pay $100 for it," and people will buy it. People will buy it, and it will still become the biggest selling game ever, because no other game out there does what GTA does.
But GTA
no other game out there does what GTA does as well as GTA does.
I maybe, maybe. It's a difficult one, because I think that if Saints Row has continued on its path that it's set with Saints Row 2, instead of doing that massive kind of like weird jump to being like over the top sort of like satire, like comedy of itself, as opposed to satire of America, which is what GTA does. I think Saints Row could have eventually reached a point, but then Saints Row jumped the shark, and we ended up getting abducted by aliens after becoming the United States, the president of the United States of America.
Yeah.
And now Saints Row's getting its reboot, but it's coming with co-op, but not like an actual online mode.
What GTA also does really well as well is it falls on pop culture really in a real subtle manner. So like GTA Vice City, that predominantly you are playing in that game. You're playing the movie of Scarface. You are playing Scarface all the way through. It's essentially Scarface that you're playing, and they do it in all the games. They're just so subtle with it, the way they bring the characters in and make it pop culture.
I wonder how much they'd be willing to compromise against a traditional GTA with this sort of new writing staff and this new direction, and in 2022 where even South Park's kind of slowly losing its edge.
We'll have to see, won't we? We'll have to see. I mean, as long I have no doubt that as long as they have someone shooting people, stealing cars, over the top missions, heists, prison breaks, all that palaver in a massive city, probably New York again, I would have thought.
It's Miami, I believe we're getting Vice City again.
Oh, is it? Cool.
It's from the leaks. But
okay.
Stuff can be leaked for forever. And
yeah.
How many? Everyone's got a cousin's uncle's daughter that works at Rockstar.
Yeah, so I don't think they're going to be able to raise the bar in terms of being controversial or anything like that. But they've got better technology than ever now, haven't they? So they can raise the bar in terms of making the city the best it's ever been. And
yeah, building that open world. I mean, they have said that the reason that they pulled support for Red Dead Online and Red Dead 2 was that they could focus on GTA 6 because they wanted to exceed fans' expectations. To put that into perspective, though, they're asking for the impossible because fans' expectations at this point is that they've rebuilt the planet Earth and you can go absolutely anywhere and kill absolutely everything, but also have a rocket that you can launch to go to the moon just in case you wanted to, for the expansion DLC where you fight off the aliens. People's expectations for GTA have become ridiculously far-fetched. So outdoing everyone's expectations. This is the problem with gaming in general. Games take a long time to build, and Microsoft has fallen victim to this probably the most out of everyone. But sometimes developers and publishers like to announce or whatever their games before the time's right, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then yeah, it's a strange one, basically, because they end up with like the hype train running. Halo Infinite's failure wouldn't be half as bad if the game had been 3 years in a development cycle and they hadn't left us kind of with no news for so long.
Yeah.
Because people had no idea, so they made up their own rumor. Oh yeah, Halo Infinite, it's going to be the biggest Halo game ever. We're going to have 400 different biomes you can visit, and we're going to have a map bigger than any Just Cause map ever, and we're going to get new vehicles, and we're going to get... Halo Infinite added nothing new. There's not a single new vehicle in Halo Infinite.
No.
There's literally not a single new vehicle. And the few people out there that are currently screaming at their phones or their computers or their TVs or whatever, telling me that I'm wrong and that the Wasp was a new vehicle, play Halo 5 and then tell me that again. It's a strange one. But also, is Halo Infinite a victim of Games Pass?
Is what?
Halo Infinite a victim of Games Pass? When you're making your games both free to play, but also the bit that you're going to charge for free via Games Pass, does the quality go down?
I don't think the quality has gone down because it's gone on Game Pass. I think we are 3 games in now into a remake. We keep coming back to Halo here, don't we? And it says something about our passion for the game, doesn't it? But we are. This is Bungie's 3rd attempt at doing something for Halo now. Sorry, 343's 3rd attempt at doing something for Halo now.
It's safety topic.
Yeah. And on the 3rd attempt, they've broke it again. They did the Master Chief Collection. We loved them for doing the Master Chief Collection. We even arranged for you to come to my house so we could play the Master Chief Collection.
Yeah.
It didn't work on the first day.
I played Assassin's Creed Unity, which also didn't work.
Yeah.
I came all the way to your house. And then Halo 5, you came all the way up to me, all the way up to Scotland. You travelled all that way, and we ended up playing Call of Duty Zombies, I want to say. So, we bought Call of Duty while you were here because Halo 5 just didn't live up to your expectations.
Was it? I thought we bought Battlefield. Battlefield.
It was Black Ops 3, and we were playing Zombies.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, they've had 3 attempts now. So, Master Chief Collection, yeah, all right. They said things came about that they weren't expecting. Okay, that's fine. You've put 3 games into one. There's bound to be complications with that.
Oh, it was 4. CE234.
Oh, yeah.
And then later on they added ODST as an apology.
And then Halo 5, you've started digitizing, by the way, on your screen.
Not on my side.
Okay. And then Halo 5 was the issues with, campaign was boring. The Halo 5 actually worked pretty well from a campaign standpoint in terms of the way the game works and stuff like that. But it just, for me, certainly, and I'm sure many others, it didn't feel like a Halo game.
I don't mind Halo 5 too much. I don't like the campaign, but it was to do with your paper shields. The multiplayer I was happy enough, and the
multiplayer on Halo 5 was uber competitive, and the multiplayer on Halo 4 was less uber competitive, and they had no happy medium. Infinite seems to have got a happy medium, but the game but
EP broke it.
But the point is, they've had 3 opportunities. 4, I think 343 got 4 right, apart from some elements on the multiplayer side of things where, they didn't introduce it as vanilla. But the 3 opportunities they've had now, they've messed it up all 3 times, and I think that's where the falling point is. 343 is the wrong company to be dealing with Halo. I think that's exactly where we need to say we are now.
Well, anyway, since we're stuck on Halo, and I've tried twice now to segue to Games Pass. I've mentioned it twice. I mentioned it once with the do you think GTA will sell with systems like Games Pass, and then I was like, was Halo a victim of Games Pass and all these games? And you've missed both my segues. So
no, I got it, but I don't think Halo is a victim of Games Pass. I think Halo is a victim of 343.
Okay, well, do you think then? Let's do it this way. Do you think that things like Games Pass and PlayStation Now lead to lower quality games overall? Shovelware, as they like to call it.
Kind of.
So you think they lead to lower quality games? What, first party or just third party people that are trying to get onto it?
Bit of both.
I have a friend.
I'll give you an example of a game that's shipped recently. It was on day one launch of Xbox Games Pass, and it was Outriders. And initially I thought it's quite a good game, this. But as you go through the first couple of levels and the first couple of missions, it becomes so monotonous and repetitive.
I think that's not necessarily a problem with the game. I don't think that's a problem with it being on Game Pass. I think that's just a problem with poor game design. Game developers aren't willing to take
that game, for example, wouldn't have done well without Game Pass. So there's that side of things as well.
Well, you say wouldn't have done well without Games Pass, but the developers never got any money for the Games Pass launch. The publisher has held on to it, or at least had done until, from well, as far as I've been tracking, the only money that they've seen from that game was from PC and PlayStation sales. They never got a single penny for the Games Pass deal, from what I can tell. I might be wrong, and feel free to call me out in the comments if I am. But the last I heard, which would have been, I'm going to say November last year, November, December last year, because I'm quite curious about how Games Pass works. I've always kind of kept up to date with how it's working and for different people, which actually is a really cool chance for me to kind of segue a little bit. I've got a friend that's making a game, and he, without mentioning names or anything, because I don't want to jeopardize anyone's opportunities, but he's currently in talks with Xbox about bringing his game to Xbox Games Pass, both for the console and the PC. He should be doing those talks next week, and hopefully, depending on what's happening and where his game's going and how it's working, we maybe see if we can get him onto the channel and have a bit of a chat about his game and what he can tell us about his experience of what it's like being a developer working with Games Pass. I think that's kind of an interesting topic personally. Like, you always hear about, think of the developers, I buy my games. That used to be Sony's big like the Sony Pony big push was, I buy my games because I care about the developers. And then they send them pics. So
junk mail.
Junk mail. So yeah. So yeah, I guess we'll wait and we'll see. But hopefully I'll be able to get that. I will be able to bring that content in.
I kind of feel like Games Pass and PlayStation Plus and what have you. I kind of feel like they're both into a situation now where, you know, the modern world's moving on, everything's going digital now, so they're kind of damned if they do and damned if they don't. What I will say about Game Pass is, if the quality has dipped, and I think it probably has in some elements, but if the quality has dipped, what I've found is I'm playing a lot more different games now than I would have done.
I'm going to argue that the quality's not dipped. I think that we have a warped perception of a dipped quality based on the fact that in 2022, the games industry still suffers from the pandemic.
I think it also suffers from lag as well. I think the last two generations of console have suffered in terms of lag on what's being offered from the generation prior to that, which was around 2004.
I'm not biting your segue. Go away. I don't. I would say that no. Specifically, the last 2 years of gaming in general, not only have they been very, very quickly trying to chase Fortnite's success with its microtransactions and its everything else. Fortnite became this overnight success. It became the game that everybody wished they had, and every sort of game since then has kind of half followed that motto. Halo Infinite going free to play for its multiplayer. Do not try telling me that that's nothing to do with Fortnite. Call of Duty Warzone, that only exists because Fortnite came to console. And I'm not saying that Fortnite's responsible for Battle Royale. Battle Royale's its own thing. But free-to-play multiplayer in that kind of manner, where you're not unlocking characters, you're unlocking skins for your thing, but the actual gameplay is not really affected by anything. That is so different to the free-to-play games that came prior. Also, fun fact for you, Fortnite was decided to go free to play 1 week before its launch. Up until then, it was supposed to be bundled in with the actual single play, like the multiplayer game.
Was it?
Yeah, and they made the decision like a week before launch that they were going to make the Battle Royale thing free. And it also launched without monetization, if I remember correctly.
Oh, really?
It was only they might have had like the item shop with some like really, really basic skins and pickaxes. But it was season 1 which also introduced towards the battle passes, which now you literally have everywhere. The Avengers game, you have a battle pass for each character. But yeah, so like they also introduced all the battle passes and stuff, and then they built a monetization system which is so unique, and it's been used really, really well. And I'm not gonna lie, I spent quite a lot of time on Fortnite, and I spent more than my fair share of money on Fortnite. It is the epitome of the word, as Ackman says, modern gaming. So yeah. If you're looking though at sort of what we're getting on Games Pass and what we're getting on PlayStation now, PlayStation's just made a deal with Ubisoft to bring loads of Ubisoft games to PlayStation now, PlayStation Plus or whatever it's currently called. They also published a bunch of numbers about their current PlayStation Plus subscribers, but their numbers don't matter because I'm a PlayStation Plus subscriber and I don't have access to their games in that sense. They've warped it because they've merged them.
They've banded all. It's 3 tiers now, isn't it? And they've banded them all together, and then
that would be like Xbox. Be like, you have an Xbox Live Gold account. That means you're a Games Pass subscriber.
Yeah, exactly.
Without access to Games Pass. So yeah, they've warped the numbers. But PlayStation's not doing day one launches, at least not first party day one. They're doing third party day one, where they're paying for other people to put games on their system day one. But they're not willing to do it with their own games, and they're citing the idea that development costs are too much, which is a valid argument. But Microsoft manages it, and I know Microsoft's got more money, but
Microsoft probably haven't got as much money now as they had when the Xbox launched in terms of the game side because of the failed second generation of the Xbox. They probably don't support it as well as what they once did.
Yes, because $78 billion to buy Activision, it's just not supporting it enough.
No. That's more for the entertainment side of Microsoft as a whole, though, isn't it?
Microsoft's gone all in on games, and Microsoft's entire games division is now Xbox. That's what you're looking at now. And it's all down to
they tried to do this a while back though, didn't they? Because they did games with Windows or whatever it was called.
Windows Live, yeah. So that's the failed version of it that came under the Don Matrick era of Xbox. That was when Xbox was failing as a brand around the 360 time. Because as popular as the 360 was, they didn't really see any real money or income from it. When the Xbox One launched and it did nothing.
The Xbox One the original Xbox cost Microsoft $4 billion.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the Xbox One.
The Xbox One was just.
It didn't do anything for them at all. The Xbox One's launch nearly killed Xbox. Microsoft was going to pull the plug. Phil Spencer stepped up and was like, "No, we can do these things." And Games Pass was born from that. Games Pass is now Microsoft's gaming division, basically. The concept of Games Pass being on a Samsung TV, being on a phone, that's their new approach, because they're finding a way to monetize gaming in a way that's never been done before. That, and also there's more than enough data out there to show that people that are playing games via Games Pass are making more in-game transaction purchases, not just like to the value of what they would have paid for the game, but to an additional value. I think I'm gonna say everyone I was playing with at the time that was playing Halo Infinite when it first launched spent. I don't want to out too many people, but I know at least 2 or 3 people that spent over £100 on. I'm not necessarily talking about people I'm talking.
I didn't spend that much. My wife's watching.
Oh, you know what I mean. I know multiple people that spent over £100 on that.
Yeah,
because they justified it. Well, I didn't pay for the game.
Yeah.
Which is why, by the way, you should all go and check out Avengers, because if you have to spend, £7 per battle pass for the 5 extra characters they've added, but you get the game from Games Pass, then you're spending still significantly less money than you would spend on the game, and you're getting the whole content with all the DLC. plug for the day.
Yeah.
Thanks, Square Enix, give me my money. Yeah, so that's just kind of like discussing from a Games Pass and sort of a PlayStation Plus thing. They're both very unique. Obviously, PlayStation's doing deals with a lot more third-party people, and Microsoft's doing a lot of in-house stuff directly for Games Pass. PlayStation is years behind where like Microsoft is with cloud.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say they were generations behind. Not the segue. But yeah, there's a big difference there between where we are. So I wouldn't say that PlayStation's response to Games Pass is a threat to Games Pass's success, but I do welcome the competition.
Competition is good. Competition brings better quality, usually.
It wasn't just that. Games Pass exists because PlayStation stomped Xbox. Like, every time that something good has happened on Microsoft's side, you should really thank Sony for showing Microsoft up.
Yeah.
And right now, all the Sony fans out there playing their PlayStations, you're welcome, because we got Games Pass, and then we supported Games Pass, and now you're getting PlayStation Now, or PlayStation Plus, or whatever it's called at the moment. You're going to get that refreshed and all sorted out for you, because the streaming wars has begun.
Yes.
Like the game streaming wars, like thing, the subscription service, that's now here. We're now gonna, this generation potentially is going to be the last console generation, not because hardware can't progress and stuff, but because we're in this very, very weird state where people aren't buying games anymore. Not really.
No.
If you look up the sale for, like, again, I'm going to take some numbers off the top of my head, so it may not be 100% right, but the recent Ratchet and Clank game that came out on PlayStation 5 as an exclusive, it sold 7 million copies. That's not profitable.
That's not what?
That's not profitable. Well, it's probably profitable, but not really. Like, how much money are they spending on making the game? 7 million copies at roughly, call it 70 pounds or whatever. How much money did they spend making a game and marketing and stuff? Like, it's probably not very profitable at all. You're about to do all the maths. I can see your face lighting up. But yeah, I mean, I'm guesstimating here. It might actually be less than 7 million. I will very, very, very quickly look this up, because
it's basically 500 million they've got from that. I think that's a profit. If you sold 7 million copies.
Sorry. As of July 18th, because that's my most recent number I've got. Sorry.
Yeah.
See if I can get that to a point where you can see it. But as of July 18th, it sold 1.1 million. So that's significantly less than I said. Sorry. So I apologize for my incorrect. But 1.1 times 70 equals 11 million.
77 million they've made off that.
77 then, yeah. That's probably not profit in modern gaming.
It probably is. They've probably made a small profit. If you look at Destiny, the size of Destiny cost 80 million to make, didn't it?
We're talking next gen though now. This is next, like,
higher
particles, higher graphic fidelity. All of those things cost more money. The fact that it was using experimental tech for the use of the SSD in the PlayStation 5, all of that's experimental. That costs more money. Like, Destiny does nothing new, and at the time did nothing new.
Yeah, I think it's probably made a profit, but I think it's probably very, very small profit. Not enough to write home about.
Yeah. Okay, so without any silly segues, let's just jump straight to the final topic for today. Okay.
I like segues.
You want us? It's just too lazy.
I can get around forests on them really fast.
too lazy to walk. Yeah. So, in your opinion, what was the greatest gaming console generation, and why?
It It's got to be the 360 PS3 era.
Okay.
It's got to be.
Why?
Main reason why. Both consoles sold loads. Obviously, my Xbox 360 had the March initially.
Beep loads.
Then
Yeah.
what?
I have beep loads. I'm gonna have to keep doing this until you learn to stop swearing in the podcast.
Okay.
Because I have to go
Obviously-
and edit it all out.
Obviously, the 360 had the initial initiative. Initial initiative had the initiative. They sold like close to 10 million consoles in the first 12 months. PlayStation hadn't even been released at that point. The downside for the Xbox was, which this is what really made it a big battle, to be honest, because I've seen reports where the 360 could have gone on to sell over 100 million consoles in that generation, which would have left the PS3 behind by about 15, 20 million, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the PS3 was able to catch up because obviously dreaded Red Ring of Death happened. And the Red Ring of Death didn't actually get solved or resolved until 2011. That was when the last Red Ring of Death console was resolved, 2011. So if you think there, you've got a four-year sort of hindrance on your console sales. But
it's not just that though. Let's look at PlayStation and what they got wrong there. They came with that stupid asking price for PS3.
Well, they had the stupid asking price, but people paid it because they knew they were worried that the Xbox was broke. So they paid it.
I don't think that's the only reason. I think they did it for two reasons separate to that. I think reason number one, Blu-ray. It was the cheapest version of a Blu-ray player you could buy at the time.
Well, that's true, yeah.
That's enough to sell it. If Xbox had put the HD DVD player built into their Xbox 360, I genuinely wonder which of the two formats we'd be doing now.
Well,
we'd have now as the main.
I bought the HD DVD player as an add-on. It was about 80 quid or something to add it on.
Yeah, but if it had been built into the console and the install base for having HD DVD players was that much higher, would the HD DVD now be around instead of Blu-ray? Also, let's not undersell that the PlayStation 3 followed on from the PlayStation 2, which is the greatest selling games console of all time.
Yeah, 120 million or something he sold.
Yeah. So,
but it didn't have any competition. It had no competition whatsoever. By the time Dreamcast was a failed dream to a certain extent. The Dreamcast was a great console, and the games on it at launch were better than the PS2, I think.
I'm just talking about the brand recognition of taking that was already in everyone's home and then going to the next step. We've kind of reached this very, very interesting point, though, now, because now, like, up until that point, PlayStation had maintained backwards compatibility. PS2 played PS1 games, PS3, when it launched, played PS2, PS1 games. Now we've reached this weird point where the PlayStation 5 plays PS4 games, but can stream PS3 games and stuff like that. And like, we're getting like more and more limited. Whereas Xbox is trying to open up further, like everything. Yeah. Like now we're looking at this weird thing where, like, basically at some point someone said backwards compatibility is not important. That's just making money for the pre-owned sale market because the publishers aren't making any money. And all of a sudden they realize that people are really passionate about older games.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to go back and play things like the original Metal Gear Solid. And I've got it on my PC, but it's a difficult game to play on a console.
Yeah.
Because it's so old and stuff like that. So, yeah, well, I do agree with you with your generation of choice.
Yeah, but I mean, PS3 and Xbox both had, like you say, the back compatibility as well.
Xbox didn't have as much back compatibility.
No, it didn't. But
Xbox had that weird thing where some games work, some games don't.
Yeah, but I think the Xbox didn't really need it at that time because the original Xbox was such a small console in terms of what it sold. Let's face it, if you bought an original Xbox, you were only playing one game.
I played lots of games on my original Xbox. I'll have you know.
All right.
But also,
90% of the time you're playing.
I'm responsible for like 50% of all Xbox sales, like from the original Xbox in the UK, mostly because I own like 5 of them.
So,
I didn't sell that many.
it's
yeah, I know what you're saying.
So
it only had
the 360 didn't really have a back catalogue to fall back on, but it played the most important game back compatible, and it actually upcycled it as well, if you remember.
Yeah, and you got that weird shadow glitch on.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, everyone, we're talking about Halo 2 for anyone.
Yeah.
Again. Wait.
But yeah, so and then from there, the 360 just kicked on. It just kept coming with these game after game after game after game. And the previous PS3 had a really poor selection of games at first.
It was also really hard to develop for, so all the third-party games were just, they weren't there. They weren't, like Skyrim, for example, was so much worse on the PlayStation than it was on the Xbox.
Yeah. But, you know, they sorted themselves out, and both consoles finished that generation pretty much on a par. I think the PS3 finished about 87 million, but Xbox 360 was 85 million, but 360 had already pulled the plug then and moved on to the Xbox One
when the Xbox
with Mr. Matrick.
With when the Xbox One became available, they instantly basically stopped. They've done that again. Actually, PlayStation 4 has doubled down on Sony's doubled down on PlayStation 4s and selling PlayStation 4 consoles even now because of the supply of PS5s.
Yeah.
Xbox stopped construction of Xbox Ones before the end of before the Series S and X launched.
Yeah.
They're taking very different models, approaches.
If you look at that generation of console, 360, PS3, even the Wii, to be fair, and compare it with everything that's come after it, well, there's certainly the bit in the middle that is like a lost generation of console. The PS4 and the Xbox. I know the PS4 spanked Xbox One out the park. You know, it just destroyed it in terms of sales. But those two consoles, I would say, are a lost generation. When you look at how many remakes they both made, it's like, oh my god, another remake. It's like both of them were scared to come up with something new.
I disagree. I think PlayStation nailed last generation. I think Xbox failed until about 2017 with the launch of Games Pass and stuff like Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2. When they started slowly moving into starting to make games, the Forza Horizon games, Gears 4 or 5, when they finally sort of hit that stride, they did all right. Right up until there, though, they just, I've never seen anything like it. We started with Titanfall. We got Titanfall right at the start of a generation of console. We moved on.
I mean, things might have looked a little bit different if.
I think you're looking at it from a what perspective? You don't own a PS4. You've never owned a PS4, so
have I owned? I think I might have. I don't know. I can't remember.
And your interest of Sony exclusives, the third-person action adventure games, is significantly lower than your interest in most other games.
Yeah, I've never really been. It's the trailers. You know that.
You're
it's
a multiplayer gamer at heart, though. Like primarily multiplayer.
Yeah,
either multiplayer or really, really deep RPG.
Yeah, but it's like Uncharted. I've seen so many trailers for Uncharted over the years, and every time I'm watching the trailers, it's like I honestly can't see what people see exciting about it. It's like I'm watching a 5-hour QuickTime event.
I played all the Uncharted games and I love them. So I loved all the Uncharted games. The Last of Us 1 was a slog. I'm not gonna lie. Playing through that was hard work. It felt violent for the sake of being violent. It was just enough a zombie thing, and all these people that told us that it wasn't, like, get your head out your ass. It's just another zombie game with exceptionally long cutscenes. Which, to be fair, the PlayStation has done really, really well. They've crafted like really cinematic storyline games based on like longer cutscenes with like heartfelt moments and stuff. But I would expect that from a company that was based in Japan.
A film company.
A company that's based in Japan. Like most Japanese games, when I think about it, like Metal Gear Solid 4 had something like a 2.5 hour final cutscene. Like the entire game, like you watch somebody play that game on as a YouTube playthrough or something like that, and you can do a good 12 hour, and there's only about 4 of it that's actual gameplay. It's just cutscene after cutscene after cutscene after cutscene because they're telling these massive, like, overly connected stories. And
yeah,
again, that's kind of where PlayStation went. Like, I've played God of War. God of War is just a basic hack and slash with the only cool mechanic was the ability to throw the axe and call it back, which kind of feels a little bit like Thor's hammer. But in all honesty, the Avengers game does that too with Thor's hammer, and that worked fine. So it didn't add anything new to me, and the like dynamic between him, his son, and him, like, yeah, okay, it's just, oh look, here's Sony making another game about a person and their child. I've played their Horizon games. I'm not a big fan of that. It was just another open world Ubisoft style game. But yeah, I'm not trying to crap on their games. Like, if you enjoy them, then that's fine. I found plenty of good games on the PlayStation 4 that I've enjoyed. Spider-Man, the PSVR, I love. Xbox really needs to get behind getting a VR onto the console just so that everyone can experience Beat Saber alone. Like, there's other games, but Beat Saber would be the game that everyone would buy. And Microsoft should get behind that. In fact, I might even do a bit more of a deep dive as to why they haven't as an actual video. But I would imagine the word cost comes into it quite a lot.
Well, yeah, and there was once upon a time when they were focusing on the HoloLens thing, weren't they? Where
and the Kinect.
Yeah.
Microsoft's got a history of failed peripherals, so
Yeah, well,
they're probably scared to try stuff now.
But the HoloLens was going to be basically you can do Minecraft on your table, wasn't it? And, you know, spin your world around and all that palaver, but it didn't happen.
Unfortunately, even with all my editing magic, this video is going to be pretty long now. We've probably reached the hour mark, so I'm going to have to call it quits there. We've got another Peave and Cronnie show next week, still coming out on Sunday, but I am unavailable for filming on the Saturday due to attending a wedding. So we'll be filming it on the Thursday. So if something major happens between Thursday night and Sunday morning and we don't talk about it, that's why.
I can always put a little add-on or something like that on.
Yeah. So I'm just reminding.
This happened.
I'm talking about this for everyone to hear, but it's also to remind Cronnie, because he's terrible at remembering stuff. Like, he can't remember conversations we had 2 hours ago. It's the senile old age. Anyway, and on that note, I have been Peave.
I have been Cronnie.
You guys have been awesome, and we will catch you next week.
See you later.